Good morning. This is Bridget. Is there anyone there? Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Good. Good morning. My name is Eric Blank, and today is Tuesday, December 23rd, 2025, and this is the Commissioners' Weekly Meeting. Before we get started, I just had a few comments on the Excel Public Safety Power Shutoffs, or PSPS, that we saw last week. This past week, many Coloradans were impacted by Excel's PSPSs. The first shutoff occurred on Wednesday, December 17th, and impacted tens of thousands of customers in Boulder, Clear Creek, Jefferson, Larimer, and Weld counties. The second shutoff happened on Friday, December 19th, impacting all the same counties and Gilpin County. I recognize that these Excel shutoffs disrupted families, schools, businesses, travel, and caused substantial losses for many. At the same time, however, there were wind gusts of over 100 miles an hour, and there were hundreds of down power lines at a time when the moisture content of the soil was unusually low. Fortunately, there were no catastrophic wildfires, so let's count our blessings for that. And just a quick shout out to all the utility linemen and other workers who did the best under difficult circumstances to restore power as quickly as possible. The PSPS is thus a potentially valuable tool available to Excel to reduce the risk of wildfire caused by down power lines or other utility infrastructure during extreme weather events. The decision about whether to do a PSPS is made by Excel, consistent with protocols and implementation approaches that the utility has proposed to the PUC and agreed to follow. The primary role of this commission is to ensure that Excel follows these protocols and approaches in implementing a power shutoff. From feedback received in the PUC process after the prior April 2024 PSPS event, Excel has agreed to the following: advanced coordination with state and local emergency response agencies, including holding practice shutoff events. Work with local governments to develop lists of critical infrastructure and facilities, for example, hospitals and water treatment facilities, to prioritize communication and power restoration. Advance notice starting as early as 72 hours before an event to all potentially impacted customers, along with regular updates leading to any power shutoff. Accurate and timely communication to customers during the outage to the maximum extent reasonably possible. Tailored and advanced outreach to individual customers that have informed Excel that they depend on electric-powered medical equipment. And finally, up-to-date and detailed mapping of planned and unplanned outages to help residential and commercial customers understand the scope of outages. At the current time, we do not really know if and to what extent Excel complied with most of these requirements, although we have already heard from over 1,600 customers through an online survey tool that suggests communication could have been better. This customer response is extremely important to our team as we seek to put in place permanent rules governing the company's approach to power shutoffs, and I'd encourage customers to let us have their feedback on the PUC website's online survey tool. We need to hear from impacted communities and customers about their experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'd also like to request that staff come back to us in the coming weeks, perhaps with a proposal to open a miscellaneous pre-rulemaking proceeding to formalize the gathering of input both from customers and governmental entities. The idea would be that this input would guide the more formal rulemaking process that the PUC will be beginning in 2026. I'd also like to receive periodic presentations about the bi-monthly update reports currently being submitted by Excel following our approval of the company's wildfire mitigation plan that describes the work being implemented to increase wildfire resiliency. Finally, for those who are still impacted and may be experiencing an outage, I encourage you to contact Excel Energy at excelenergy.com. So those are my preliminary comments on the power shutoffs. Commissioner Gilman, anywhere you'd like to go?
Yeah, thanks. Don't have a lot to add there, but would say, yeah, just appreciate the folks on the ground working as hard as they can to get power restored. It was quite the windstorm. So, those aren't the folks making the decisions about the PSPS and those things. They're out there working as hard as they can, outdoors and in some tough conditions to get things back operating for everyone. So appreciate everyone's patience with those crews specifically. Yeah, and agree with you in the process to come to look at this. And in addition, I mean, some really unfortunate weather circumstances also. If everyone is so inclined to ask for some snow for Christmas, that would be very nice to get some moisture in the state, honestly. Obviously, we've been dealing with really unseasonably warm throughout the entire state and free of any moisture for far too long. So a very difficult weather circumstance. We'll obviously be looking after the fact at how all the details went with regard to not only the PSPS, but the outages that followed as a result of the wind event. But we could really use some help from Mother Nature here too to ease the conditions that made this so particularly dangerous.
Commissioner Plant?
Yeah, I just echo your comments and say, I think when the Marshall Fire happened, we talked about it being sort of this confluence of all of these various different conditions that, created this perfect storm environment. It seems like this is kind of a very similar situation, but it also contributed to the frustration because of people because this PSPS, while perhaps avoiding a lot of fire risk came just before Christmas as businesses were really ramping up their activities and people were expecting to get things ready for family coming into town and all that sort of thing. And I think there was a real heightened level of frustration from a number of folks that we certainly saw in a lot of those comments in the reports that have been submitted so far. And it's understandable. And I agree that trying to get all of the customers who have experienced both PSPSs really to participate and have their comments and insights contribute to the upcoming rulemaking would be extremely valuable. And so appreciate that suggestion.
No, I've been going through the comments too, and can certainly relate. We lost power both on the Wednesday for 24 hours and then again on Friday for 24 hours. And, like many others, probably had it worse, had to replace all the food in the refrigerator and the freezer. So it's really disruptive and a lot of loss. I wonder if we need to start looking at, maybe partial rebates for some people who are impacted by this for backup power or, some form of battery storage. But I suppose that's a conversation for a later day.
Yeah, to that point, one of the things that we talked about, particularly for those that were relying on medical equipment, was, storage. I think there were a couple of issues. One, Excel didn't know who those customers were, and they were supposed to be working with the county health agencies to try and identify those folks and then work with those customers to get them backup power. I'm not sure. I mean, we passed this not too long ago, so I'm
No,
not sure how far along that process they are, or if they've started going down that process. But it would be, I think, informative to try and find out where the company is in that, and if that actually did have some impact in mitigating the impacts on those dependent customers.
yeah, maybe that's something we can look at in that miscellaneous docket. I know we approved 100% um, rebates for people with medical issues, but I don't know how far that's gotten. With that, Commissioner Gilman, any other preliminary remarks? Are you ready to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Nothing additional right now, and I would vote to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Plant?
I would vote to approve the consent agenda as well.
As would I. Proceeding 25G-0191CP, Estes Park Rideshare. Ms. Condra, Ms. Harper. Ms. Harper.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ruthie Harper of your Commission Council. This matter comes to the Commission for consideration of the exceptions filed by a trial staff to the ALJ's recommended decision in this case. In short, staff wants the Commission to reject the ALJ's reasoning for denying staff's oral motion to enter default against the respondent, who did not show up for the hearing. Staff first argues that existing Rule 1308F of the Commission's rules already permits entry of default, and that this rule should be applied in the CPAN enforcement context. Staff says the served CPAN lists out 4 options for the respondent to take, which essentially are to pay for some or all of the violations or contest some alleged violations and contact the Commission to schedule a hearing. Staff contends a respondent not taking one of these options amounts to a non-answer, in which case the ALJ can enter default. Second, if that rule doesn't apply, then staff asks the Commission to rule that ALJs can import Rule 55 of the Colorado Rules of Civil Procedure, or CRCPs, for entry of default. Staff explains, under this process, the judge enters a finding of default, then the movement files a follow-up motion for default that includes an affidavit demonstrating the amount of damages being sought. Staff urges that using this process would be in the interest of judicial economy and would not infringe on the due process rights of CPAN respondents. The ALJ's reasoning for denying the motion is that bringing in CRCP 55 would conflict with the Commission's established process. The ALJ found that process, already set out in statute and rule, contemplates the hearing will proceed, even if a respondent does not appear. The ALJ said such rules authorize the presiding ALJ to take up the scheduled hearing and receive competent evidence from staff demonstrating the violations alleged in the CPAN. The ALJ found, unlike in court, CPAN respondents have no obligation to answer or defend. Under Section 47.116 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, if the CPAN respondent does nothing, then the CPAN automatically becomes a complaint and the Commission sets a hearing on the merits. In contrast, a respondent in a judicial proceeding under the CRCPs does have an obligation to answer or otherwise defend. So that's what the ALJ said. I'll pause here for questions, or I can give my recommendation.
Yeah, if you can give us your recommendation, that'd be great.
I recommend denying staff's exceptions for 3 reasons. First, there is no current obligation for a CPAN respondent to answer or otherwise defend. The critical component of entering default is that the respondent had an obligation to answer or defend against the claim. Nothing currently in Title 40 or the Commission's rules requires a response by a CPAN respondent. And nothing says a respondent risks a default judgment if they do nothing. Second, instead, statute contemplates a respondent may do nothing in response to a CPAN, and in such case, the Commission will schedule a hearing on the merits at which staff has the burden to prove the alleged violations by a preponderance of the evidence. Staff's exceptions do not explain how entry of default would meet that statutory burden. And I see nothing in the statute or, again, the current rules that suggests staff is free from that statutory burden when a CPAN respondent fails to appear at hearing. So this is yet another way that CPAN enforcement proceedings are unique. There is no analogous provision under CRCP 55 that requires a party seeking default judgment to prove a claim by the preponderance of the evidence. And third, I do not see efficiency gains sufficient to outweigh that this abbreviates the process afforded to respondents. These motions come at the start of the hearing when everyone is already there and ready to go. And skipping evidence would make these cases one-sided. Staff would write and issue the CPAN and then ask the ALJ to deem those same allegations admitted when the respondent did not appear at hearing. So I have concern that this is not what the statute envisions. For those reasons, I recommend upholding the ALJ in the CPAN matter. I'll turn it back to you for discussion and vote.
Commissioner Gilman,
Thanks, Mr. Harper. I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I, and that can be an ABC decision. Ms. Harper denying the exception, so thank you. Proceeding number 22A-0230E, Black Hills Electric Resource Plan, RRR requests. Mr. Davis, Mr. Eden.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Davis of the Commission's advisory staff. In September of last year, the Commission issued what we call a Phase 2 decision, authorizing Black Hills Colorado Electric to develop a portfolio of generation and storage resources with further due diligence and contract negotiations in accordance with the company's approved clean energy plan. Approximately 1 year later, in late August of this year, Black Hills filed a motion for guidance on whether to proceed with clean energy projects. Black Hills seeks a determination by the Commission whether the company should continue to pursue executed contracts with the developers of 2 remaining solar projects in the company's Phase 2 resource portfolio, considering increased pricing and other changes proposed by the developers. One project is a 100 megawatt solar build transfer agreement, or BTA project, and the second is a 200 megawatt solar power purchase agreement, or PPA project. By decision number C25805, or what I'll call the guidance decision, the Commission granted in part and denied in part Black Hills' motion for guidance. Citing rate impact and other concerns and factors, the Commission determined that Black Hills should continue to move forward with the 200 megawatt PPA solar project, but not the 100 megawatt BTA solar project. On December 1st, Black Hills filed an application for rehearing, re-argument, or reconsideration to the guidance decision. Black Hills takes no issue with the 100 megawatt reduction of the Clean Energy Plan resources resulting from the Commission's rulings on the guidance motion. Instead, the RRR asked the Commission to consider, as a quote backup project, an enlarged 200 megawatt BTA solar project offered by the same developer as the 100 megawatt BTA project at what it calls a more advantageous price than the 200 megawatt PPA. A day later, Pueblo County also filed RRR. Pueblo County briefly states that it does not waive its earlier request that the Commission reject all of the Phase 2 projects because they all increase rates. But in the alternative, Pueblo County requests that the Commission order Black Hills to pursue as its primary project the 200 megawatt BTA project, which Pueblo County argues is a lower cost option. Then on December 11th, the Colorado Independent Energy Association filed a motion for leave to respond to Black Hills RRR. CIA argues that Black Hills introduces, through its RRR pleading, new facts not in evidence with respect to both its evaluation of the 200 megawatt PPA project and to its further negotiation and proposed modification of the 100 megawatt BTA project. CIA further states that the 200 megawatt BTA is a surprise, since during the course of the ERP case, Black Hills had requested 100 megawatt bids to its initial RFP, discouraging independent power producers from offering larger size bids. CIEA further states it could not have discovered prior to the RRR deadline that Black Hills would have conducted such further negotiations or sought to make the comparisons and allegations about the relative risk and value of PPA projects versus BTA bids in a RRR pleading. Last Friday, Black Hills filed a response to CIA's motion. Black Hills' response is less of an objection to the commission granting CIA leave to respond to the company's RRR than a rebuttal to the points CIEA makes in its response. Notably, Black Hills states that if the commission concludes that the 200 megawatt BTA project warrants further consideration, but the party should be afforded an opportunity to provide comment, nothing precludes the commission from ordering such process on an expedited basis. And in any case, Black Hills argues that CIEA has in effect responded to Black Hills' new information by filing its motion, and the commission can order that the 200 megawatt BTA project be considered a backup project without further process. So before moving on, let's take up the question whether to grant CIA's motion to respond to Black Hills RRR. I'll proceed to a recommendation, and we think that CIA satisfies the requirements of the Commission's rules regarding a motion for leave to respond to RRR, and therefore the Commission should grant that motion.
Commissioner Gellman, vote on the initial motion before we get to the substance.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree.
As do I.
Okay, so in its response to Black Hills RRR, CIEA argues that the guidance decision correctly found that the 200 megawatt PPA was the better option for Black Hills ratepayers, and that the Commission should continue to support the 200 megawatt PPA as the selected project. CIEA does not take a position on whether the 200 megawatt BTA project should be identified as a backup, but instead it raises objections to the BTA bid being elevated over PPA backup alternatives should the 200 megawatt PPA fail. So the two decision points before you are whether to grant or deny Black Hills RRR and Pueblo County's RRR. And those are RRRs to the Commission's guidance decision. So I'll pause now for your discussion and vote.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Davis. Maybe I'll jump in and then want to see where you guys are coming from. For me, I'm sympathetic to CIEA's concerns. It seems as if at the very end of the process, Black Hills is coming in, knowing the pricing of the PPA project and the PUC's express preferences with a utility-owned project that was significantly modified from the initial bid without giving similar opportunities to other bidders. To me, this situation has elements of what CIEA alleges an unfair competitive process. As such, I agree with CIEA that there have been substantial changes to the project size, pricing, construction budget, O&M costs, risk sharing, and operations of this revised BTA project that are coming in at the RRR stage when our ability to meaningfully engage the substance is constrained. Overall, I love the proposed dollar per megawatt hour price of the 200 megawatt BTA. I just have substantial concerns about whether customers will ever see the benefits of that pricing, given where we are in this current process, and as most operational, construction, and tax credit monetization risk is on customers as compared to a PPA, as the PIMs only shift a small fraction of those risks. I think this concern is particularly relevant at the RRR stage of the process, as parties have only limited access to critical project and other data. Competitive tension is likely no longer available from other projects. Opportunities to review the company proposal are limited, and the effort to develop partial PIMs to shift some risk is just starting. As one example, the third-party report estimating production for this proposed project is materially below the assumption that the company is continuing to use to justify the economics with most of the production risk on customers, even with a PIM. And I don't think these concerns are somehow theoretical. In the most recent Black Hills Electric rate case, trial staff found that the actual after-the-fact cost to customers of the utility Peakview wind project was almost 60% higher than what was presented in the CPC&M proceeding because of lower production and the company's inability to efficiently monetize the tax credits. If Black Hills were willing to accept the construction, operational, and tax credit monetization risk equivalent to a PA structure, I'd feel totally different. For example, if the company agreed to receive customer payments at the fixed, non-adjustable, levelized dollar per megawatt hour cost of energy shown in Table 1 at page 8 of its triple R motion based on the actual generation that was delivered, then I'd vote today to make the utility-owned 200 megawatt BTA project the primary one. But that's not close to the company's per PIM and rate base proposals that shift only a small portion of the total risk, particularly trying to implement them at this stage of the process. In sum, given that this project has not been through the competitive process in anything like its current form, that the changes to this bid at this stage of the process potentially create fairness issues, and because of concerns about whether the benefits of the proposed pricing will be realized by customers, given where we're at in this process, I would not deem this project as a backup. I also worry that awarding the BTA status, backup status, creates incentives for the company to negotiate with a PPA bidder in ways that don't lead to a final PPA. If the 200 megawatt PPA project fails, then I think the company needs to come back to us with an explanation of why the bid failed and any proposal it might have to do about what to do next. At that point, I think we need to provide a 30-day window for parties to respond that considers all options, including potentially allowing all bidders to rebid at 200 megawatts, or maybe even ending up where Pueblo seems to prefer. But I can't support granting this utility-owned project backup status based on this record at this stage of the process. Finally, regarding the Pueblo County Triple R, I just say that we strongly share the goal of getting the lowest cost power, but would deny the specific request to deem this 200 megawatt BTA project as the primary one, given the fairness, risk sharing, and implementation concerns expressed above. So with that, Commissioner Gilman, anywhere you'd like to go? Curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, thanks. I'm fairly aligned with your opinion here. I think what we're seeing here in Triple R is really an abnormal, concerning process here. While I agree with you, the pricing that was ultimately provided looks good. We have to consider, is this really an appropriate process? Do we have the right record to make this decision, as you indicated? And then what are the potential risks? You brought up several in terms of risks to ratepayers, but also I think there's broader risks in terms of really chilling competition in acquiring new resources for Black Hills specifically. And in this commission, potentially endorsing a process that doesn't really appear to provide appropriate competitive pressure and transparency throughout the process, which I think in the long run can't be a good thing for Black Hills ratepayers. If these processes are seen as less trustworthy, less competitive, and have IPPs not wanting to bid into them in the future, which I think having such a odd process has certainly some risk of, in addition to some of the ratepayer risks that you already brought up. So I'm fairly aligned with your position here.
Commissioner Plant?
Yeah, I really don't have too much to add. I agree with both of you. I had some of those same concerns. We already don't get that as many bids, with a Black Hills solicitation, and I think if we were to embrace a process like this, I don't know that we would get really. I think we get a lot fewer bids the next time out if they knew that. The process would be followed, and then the company could come in and undercut a bid after the fact. you come in with your best offer. That's the way the competitive process works. And if you start, having a second bite at the apple just for the company, I think that just undermines everything, all the benefits of a competitive process. So, and reduces future participation, understandably. So I agree with both of you on your recommendations or your motion or whatever it was.
Mr. Davis, does that give you what you need?
Yes, would you like this to be an ABC or TBC decision? It's a triple R decision, so it needs to be mailed by the 31st.
I think I'm fine with an ABC decision. Commissioner Gilman, does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me. The only other thing I would say, I don't think I mentioned the Pueblo triple R in my response to your remarks. And I agree with you there as well. I think it's worth noting, especially in the first time that we decided this recently, there are some fairly significant resource adequacy concerns. So we do need more resources in this area. It's unfortunate that the prices are increasing to do so, certainly. But, not acquiring any resources does not really appear to be the most ideal pathway here. And we're just really in an unfortunate pricing time, as we're seeing across, honestly, solicitations across utilities. Prices are rising for these resources, which is unfortunate. But I did just want to address the resource adequacy concern, which I think is really pertinent to Pueblo's position here. Obviously, we want to keep the prices as low as possible, but we are in a negative resource adequacy position here, and I think it would be helpful to continue the course of acquiring more resources. But yeah, I'm fine with ABC if that works for you all.
Commissioner Plant?
Yeah, I'm fine with the ABC and the additional comments that Commissioner Gilman shared.
So I guess that's an ABC decision denying both applications for triple R and granting CIEA's motion for leave to respond. So thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
24A-0442E, Public Service Company Just Transition. Mr. DeCenzo, Mr. Eden.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Michael Eden with your advisory staff. I'm joined today by Assistant Attorney General Mitch DeCenzo. I'll start us off today with a motion to modify reply comment deadline relating to red lines of power purchase agreements that Public Service Company of Colorado filed on December 11th. After your vote on Public Service's motion to modify deadline, I'll turn it over to Mr. DeCenzo. As background, in the Phase 1 decision, the Commission established a process to further develop a minimally negotiable set of model power purchase agreements, or PPAs. For the purpose of this PPA litigation process, the Phase 1 decision largely adopts the procedural schedule Public Service proposed in its statement of position. The Commission directed Public Service to file revised PPAs within 14 days of the Phase 1 decision. Parties then had 14 days to file response comments, and the company could file reply comments 14 days after that. On November 17th, the Colorado Independent Energy Association, or CIEA, the Colorado Solar and Storage Association, the Solar Energy Industries Association, and Advanced Energy United, and the Interwest Energy Alliance, which collectively I'll refer to as the IPP trade associations, filed a motion for stay requesting that the Commission hold in abeyance the PPA litigation procedural schedule until the Commission issued a decision on the applications for rehearing, re-argument, or reconsideration. Public Service opposed this motion for stay, but suggested the Commission could extend the deadline for the IPP trade associations by 4 days. The Commission ultimately denied the IPP trade association's motion for stay, but extended the deadline by 11 days. The new response deadline was December 15th. Public Service's new reply deadline is January 2nd. On December 11th, Public Service filed the motion to modify deadline. Through its motion, the company requests a 7-day extension of its reply deadline to January 9th. The company states good cause exists for a deadline extension to accommodate personnel schedules over the holidays. Public Service adds the extension will neither prejudice any party nor delay phase 2 of the just transition solicitation. The company reported that the Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate supports the motion to modify deadline, but the IPP trade associations oppose the extension. After the company filed the motion to modify deadline, the IPP trade associations filed their respective PPA response comments on December 15th. CIEA, however, was unable to finish all of the PPA comments and requested a 4-day extension to file its revisions to the final model PPA. CIEA's motion for a 4-day extension was unopposed, and the Commission granted it nunc-pro-tunc on today's consent agenda. Finally, on December 19th, Public Service filed an updated conferral statement regarding the motion to modify deadline, alerting the Commission that CIEA had withdrawn its opposition to the company's motion to modify. So the decision before you is how to proceed with the company's motion to modify deadline, and I can offer a recommendation if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Advisors recommend granting, in part, Public Service's request for additional time to file reply comments. We acknowledge the difficulty of working on reply comments during the holiday season and the fact that CIEA no longer opposes the motion to modify deadline. Advisors are unconvinced, however, that the holidays warrant a week-long extension. A week-long extension would give Public Service 23 days, not including Christmas and New Year's Day, to file reply comments after the interveners have filed their comments. In their statement of position, Public Service initially requested 14 days to file reply comments. Nevertheless, given CIEA's recent unopposed request for an extension, we recommend the Commission give Public Service the same 4-day extension. A 4-day extension of Public Service's current deadline would be January 6, 2026.
Commissioner Goman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I, and that can be an ABC decision consistent with your recommendation. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. DeCenzo.
Thank you, Mr. Eden. Also for your consideration today are the applications seeking rehearing, re-argument, or reconsideration of decision number C25-0747. This was the Commission's Phase 1 decision in this proceeding, and it was issued November 6th, 2025. 17 timely applications for RRR were filed on November 26, 2025. Pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute, Section 46-114, the Commission must act upon any application for RRR within 30 days of its filing, and in this case by December 26, 2025, or the application will be denied by operation of law. Due to the number and complexity of the issues presented in the RRR's applications, as well as to the significant present business of the Commission this month, Council recommends the Commission find today that it requires further time to consider the RRR applications to prepare its written decision. Therefore, to preclude a denial by operation of law, Council recommends that you grant the RRR applications today for the sole purpose of tolling the statutory time limit. This grant would be procedural and undertaken only to toll the statutory time limit in section 46-114.
Commissioner Goman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I, and if that's a separate order, it can be ABC.
Thank you.
Thank you. Proceeding number 25AL-0460E, Peak Partner Reward Program. Ms. O'Neill, Public Service.
Yeah. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Erin O'Neill with your Fixed Utilities staff. I'm here to discuss proceeding 25AL-0460E, which is an advice letter filed by Public Service Company of Colorado on October 31st, 2025, with a proposed effective date of January 1st, 2026. This advice letter proposes to amend the company's electric tariff to increase the performance incentive credit for the Peak Partner Rewards Program, or PPRP, from the current rate of 70 cents per kilowatt hour of actual load reduction to $1.35 per kilowatt hour. The Peak Partner Rewards Program is an existing demand response program for commercial and industrial customers that provides participants both a reservation incentive credit of $2 per kilowatt month for enrollment in the program, and a performance incentive credit currently set at 70 cents per kilowatt hour of actual load reduction during demand response events. The program has been in place since it received commission approval in the company's 2017 to 18 demand side management plan. In its approval of the program, the commission stated that the PPRP tariff may be updated annually as necessary to balance customer participation and program cost effectiveness. This advice letter does not modify the reservation incentive credit, but proposes a significant increase in the performance incentive credit. The company explains that enrollment in PPRP has been flat for the past 3 years, and that it believes increasing the performance incentive credit will drive higher event participation and improve enrollment levels. The company also describes its proposal as aligning with recent policy interests in demand-side management options, as well as concerns about near-term resource adequacy constraints. The company states that the proposed performance incentive credit level of $1.35 per kilowatt hour would align the incentive with other service territories in which Xcel Energy offers this program. And it also moves the performance-based incentive level to be very close to the per kilowatt hour pricing levels that the company offers through its critical peak pricing rates that are available for SG, PG, and TG customers. The company cannot quantify how this change will impact the participation level, but states that it will continue to monitor program participation, demand reduction outcomes, and budget impacts, and account for all program expenditures within the approved DSM budget. The company also asserts that the proposed adjustment to the performance incentive credit remains within cost-effective thresholds. This tariff change results in no direct bill impacts to customers, as the proposal would change only the credit for PPRP participants and not customer rates. The modification could indirectly affect customers' rates and bills through its impact on the overall DSM spending level, which is ultimately recovered through the DSMCAE. Although such impacts are likely to be small, given the company's stated belief that it can implement this adjustment within the existing DSM budget. So I'll pause here, see if you have any questions, or I can provide a recommendation.
Yeah, if you can give us a recommendation, that'd be great.
Sure. Tariff change proposed in this proceeding is consistent with the Commission's previous guidance that this tariff may be updated annually as necessary to balance customer participation and program cost effectiveness, as noted above, and the company has provided evidence to support such an adjustment. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission allow the proposed tariff changes to take effect by operation of law.
Commissioner Gilman.
Thanks, Ms. O'Neill. I have 2 questions for you. The first is there any relationship of the credit being given to, say, the cost of new peaking generation, which seems to me to be what it is offsetting? You know, clearly we've seen a pretty dramatic escalation in the likely cost of peaking generation, especially from gas units. So just trying to understand, you know, kind of upon what that is based or compared to in terms of cost effectiveness.
Yeah, that's a great question. I had the same question myself, so I did a little bit of poking around on this one. So I think part of the distinction or what's happening here, right, is this is a voluntary program that doesn't give the company direct control. So it isn't equivalent to a peaking resource that they have control over, nor would it be equivalent to a program like the ISOC. I know my colleague, Mr. Dalton, will be discussing ISOC with you guys all later. So these programs are different because they do provide some somewhat different value. So I guess I would say that, like, think of that as a guidance to thinking about how much demand response is worth, but that the actual characteristics of the programs themselves matter. So I think, yes, this program, like, think about this as trying to avoid that peak impact, but it also isn't the same as an actual firm resource for the company. Can't count towards their reserve requirements and things like that. So the value of that isn't as high, which I think is part of why the company is struggling with exactly how to quantify this. Is, you know, it's a little bit of art and science and thinking about it has real value in avoiding, you know, peak energy demands, but isn't the same as an actual dispatchable resource. So trying to price this at some place that gets enough enrollment, provides actual response and people to show up, but is still cost effective for a program that isn't full control for the company. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question. So it's sort of a, like, in between, right? It's got real energy benefits of not dispatching, you know, an energy resource, but it's not the full value of, like, the all-in cost of a new peaking plant. So that's kind of an in-between pricing value. And trying to find that right participation cost.
Yeah, another question in terms of like what sort of reporting do we have available on the program's performance, both in terms, I think you had said like the allocated load has been similar, but like the responsiveness of the load, that kind of getting to that first point on like how sure of a resource is this in terms of a percentage of what we have signed up. Do we have reporting on what that performance looks like?
Yeah, good question. I believe the answer is yes, that we're getting quarterly reporting on the DSM programs. I'm standing in for Mr. Haglund, who is out today, so I'm not sure, and I can come back to you with a more definitive answer, but I believe there's quarterly reporting sort of performance of the various DSM programs where this program would be reported on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think those two things are linked together in my head in terms of, well, this isn't, as sure a thing as the gas peaker or whatever, right? The customers are making the decisions, but at some point it seems as though you have enough data and you have enough results to actually understand what customer response does look like on a pretty regular basis and can begin to make assumptions based off of, enough data. So they seem related to me. Like, what data do we have? What does it show? And then how do we treat and price this resource to ensure really that we're capitalizing on what customers are willing to bring to the table to reduce total system costs, which is the main goal here.
Yeah, no, I think all that is exactly right. And I think Stafford's reaction was, I think it made sense to us to try to adjust this here because I think the company provided enough to support to say that people aren't enrolling, but take a longer, harder look and more complete look at the analytics of this within the context of the DSM proceeding, where we're looking at all of the programs and kind of take a deeper dive on the quantitative parts of this. So I think our thought was this makes sense and might as well sort of do something in the short term to try to boost some enrollment in a program that seems cost effective based on sort of the history. But yeah, to still have a lot of questions about how this fits within the broader context of all of the programs.
Yeah, no, thanks. That makes sense. I mean, I just kind of can't shake from my head. There are so many things going on right now at once, and we're seeing a dramatic escalation in the cost of new generation, especially new dispatchable gas generation. And so any way we can more accurately assess and price these avoidance techniques to ensure, it's a different situation once those resources become, 3 times more expensive. We need to really ensure we're pricing all these programs appropriately to save that money for ratepayers wherever possible. So, long-winded way of saying I agree with your recommendation, but it seems like we got some more work to do as we embark on DSM in 2026, especially to make sure we're pricing all these things appropriately given the new pricing.
Commissioner Plant.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for bringing up those points, Commissioner Gilman. I think in addition to, identifying how these resources are different, I think also quantifying that differentiation in risk to customers, as well as the escalating costs that Commissioner Gilman talked about, I think is valuable. But I understand need to gather some more information, and hopefully the commission can stay informed as the information from the quarterly reports comes in. This is something that I think the whole commission has a real interest in seeing how we can effectively price this stuff and deploy it and make it a resource that we can rely on. So I agree.
Yeah, as do I, and I just echo what my colleagues say. And thank you, Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you, commissioners.
25AL-0463E, Mr. Dalton, Black Hills TCA.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
You can.
Good morning. My name is Bill Dalton, staff engineer, and today I'd like to present proceeding number 25AL-0463E, which is an advice letter filed by Black Hills, Colorado, advice letter 898, to increase their transmission cost adjustment rider. The transmission cost adjustment rider, or the TCA, recovers the cost for incremental transmission-related costs that are incremental to the transmission-related investments already being recovered in base rates and that added capacity. This TCA filing represents incremental transmission-related costs for the period January 2025 through December 31st, 2025. This filing incorporates transmission capital expenditures that have occurred since the company's last TCA filing. Based on the proposed increase, the average residential customer bill under rate schedule RS1 will increase by 13 cents or 0.1%. The average small commercial customer monthly bill will increase by 49.5 cents or 0.212%. If permitted to go into effect January 1st, 2026, the tariff revisions will result in an increase of $959,000 in revenue requirements from the 1.38 million to 2.34 million. Notice the company filed concurrently with this advice letter motion for approval of alternative form of notice on October 31st, 2025. The commission granted the alternative form of notice. There has been no interventions at all as of December 18th, 2025. No public comments or complaints with regard to this filing. Staff has reviewed the work papers used to determine the revised rates and conclude that the company's filed tariff sheets adequately include allowable incremental transmission costs incurred during 2025.
Commissioner
As
Gellman.
required by
Oh, sorry.
and the company did not include any distribution system cost or any cost that does not increase capacity in the TCA determinations. At this point, I'd like to just pause for any questions.
Now, if you have a recommendation, that'd be great.
Okay, staff recommends that Black Hills, Colorado electric tariff sheet be allowed to go into effect by operation of law.
Commissioner Gellman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I. Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Thank you.
Proceeding number 25AL-0465G, Atmos SSIR. Ms. McGee.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Bridget McGee with Commission staff. On November 3rd, 2026, Atmos Energy Corporation, or Atmos, filed advice letter number 634, which is a compliance filing in accordance with the Atmos Safety System Integrity Rider, or SSIR tariff, to amend rates effective January 1st, 2026. In the filing, Atmos proposes to increase the company's annual revenues by $409,387, which is approximately 0.34% of the company's total operating revenues. The filing also includes a true-up of the 2024 SSIR revenues, resulting in an increased revenues of $424,638. If approved, the total increase will be $834,025. The SSIR increase is assessed through volumetric charges only, and the resulting total bill increase for sales customers associated with the SSIR does not exceed 2.5% per year as required by Atmos tariff. The company also included in the filing the company's SSIR cost recovery request for 2026 SSIR projects. The company states no new projects will be added after December 31st, 2025. The amended rates, if approved, will be in effect from January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2026. If there are no questions, staff is ready to make a recommendation.
No, we'd welcome. I do have one question, but why don't you make your recommendation?
Staff recommends that the Commission take no action and allow Atmos advice letter number 634 to go into effect by operation of law.
So I'm good with your recommendation, but did you say that the SSIR was almost 25% of total revenues? Did I hear that right?
No, 0.34%, sir.
Oh, all right. I did not hear that right. I'm good with the recommendation. Commissioner Gillman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I. Thanks, Ms. McKay.
Thank you.
25AL-0504E, Mr. Dalton, Black Hills energy payment rate.
Good morning, Bill Dalton, staff engineer again. Now I'd like to present proceeding number 25AL-0504E, advice letter filed by Black Hills Colorado Electric to increase the energy payment rate to become effective January 1st, 2026. This instant filing reflects Black Hills' proposal to increase the energy payment rate, also referred to as the average hourly incremental cost of electricity, applicable to cogeneration and small power production facilities, as well as some net metering customers who choose the cash out provision. The revised tariff sheet reflecting the current energy payment rates or avoided cost rate, and some net metering customers have who have elected the cash out option. The updated avoided cost rate is derived from historical companies' generation costs from the 12-month period starting October 1st of the previous year through September 30th of this current year. The revised energy payment rate increases to 3.5 cents per kilowatt, or almost 18%, from the current 3 cents per kilowatt hour. The increase in proposed energy rate is largely attributable to the increased generation costs at the company's PEG station, as well as an increased purchase power cost for the same annual period as the drivers for the increase of energy production rates. The revised tariff impacts cogeneration to small power producers. However, there are no such customers on the company system at this time. Based on previous net metering cash out payments, the companies anticipates incurring approximately $44,000 more funded through the company's RISA funds, and has no effect on the company's annual revenue if approved. The company has filed concurrent motions for approval of alternative form of notice, which the commission has approved, and there's been no public comments or complaints about the proposed revision. Staff has reviewed the Rule 3664D work papers to determine the revised rates. The revised tariff sheets conclude that the company's revised tariff sheets adequately reflects 2025 actual hourly incremental cost and are consistent with prior methods used. At this time, I'd like to pause for any questions.
Why don't you go to your recommendation, and we'll come back with questions, comments, or a vote.
Staff recommends that this Black Hills revived tariff sheet be allowed to go into effect by operation of law.
Commissioner Gilman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I. Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Thank you.
Looks like you got another one, Mr. Dalton. 25AL-0506E, Public Service Company, ISOC.
Correct, I do. Let me see here. Oh.
Do you need a minute? You want me to?
Yeah, I need a minute. If you could jump ahead, I didn't realize I was. I closed my windows already.
No, you're 2 for 2. So we'll come back in a second. No problem. Proceeding 25L-0523G. Mr. Lay, Mr. Duncan, Atmos GCA. Mr. Lay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Lay with PUC staff, and I'll be presenting on the application submitted by Atmos Energy Corp to adjust its gas cost adjustment for the first quarter of 2026. Atmos Energy is proposing to increase the commodity portion of the GCA rate in the North, Southeast, and Southwest divisions, and increase the upstream portion in the North and Southwest divisions, while the upstream portion in the Southeast division will stay the same. The requested change will result in a 0.11519 per 100 cubic feet increase or a 0.64811 per CCF GCA rate in the North Colorado Division, a 0.07861 per CCF increase or a rate of 0.4486 per 1 per CCF GCA rate in the Southeast Colorado Division, and a 0% increase, $0 increase, or a rate of 0.3700 per CCF rate in the Southwest Colorado Division as compared to the fourth quarter of 2025 GCA rates. This results in a 21.61% increase in the GCA rate for the North Division, a 21.25% increase in the GCA rate in the Southeast Division, and a 0% increase in the GCA rate for the Southwest Division. Additionally, ATMOS proposes decreasing its GCA for transportation service for all divisions to 0.00013 per CCF from the current GCA rate of 0.00086, resulting in a GCA rate change of minus 0.00073 per CCF, or a 84.88% decrease. I can pause for questions or proceed to the staff recommendation.
Yeah, if you can go to the recommendation, that'd be great.
Good. Staff has reviewed the application, the accompanying tariffs, and the work papers provided, and recommends that the commission deem the application complete and that the application be granted on less than statutory notice.
Commissioner Gilman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I. Thank you, Mr. Lay. Back to you, Mr. Dalton.
Good morning. Now I'd like to present proceeding number 25AL0504E, advice letter 2008 filed by Public Service Company of Colorado. This instant filing reflects Public Service of Colorado proposals to revise the avoided energy cost payment in Part B of the company's ISOC service, applicable to eligible customers electing this service for calendar year 2025. The proposed change revises the avoided energy cost from approximately 7 cents per megawatt hour to 16 cents per megawatt hour. This change only affects credits paid to customer under Part B of the tariff, which is applicable to grandfathered customers taking this service under this tariff before January 1st, 2019, and have elected the 10 minutes notice option. Customers subscribing to the company's ISOC programs agree to have the contracted amount of their energy load interrupted for up to 40, 80, or 60 hours per year. In return, the customers are compensated via monthly credits for the capacity and energy they avoid. The ISOC credit is avoided into two components: a credit for reducing the planning reserve margin and a credit for reducing the operating reserve margins, both expressed in dollars per kilowatt month. The foundational rate is adjusted annually for the forecasted natural gas prices for the upcoming year. This is the only change incorporated into the tariff filing itself. And essentially, this will increase by 2 cents the summer credit and approximately 2 cents in the wintertime credit. Primarily, and that's where it stands. Notice the company has filed notice to all the customers taking this service, and no impacted customers have filed any complaints or interventions on this. And the cost impact, the company has identified that the potential credit paid to these customers is de minimis to the total impact, as the total impact cannot be determined as be a function of the interruptions yet to be implemented. For the same reason, the potential impact on the company's annual revenue cannot be determined at this time. In summary, the company desires to change the tariffs accompanying this advice letter to become effective January 1st, 2026. The proposed avoided energy cost payment for 2026 is consistent with the methods approved by the Commission in proceeding 17A0462EG. At this time, I'd like to pause for any comments or questions.
Yeah, why don't you go to your recommendation, sir?
Staff recommends that the commission allow the advice letter to go into effect by operation of law.
Commissioner Gilman, I think all your prior comments, maybe even more strongly, may even be better taken in this context, but go ahead.
Thank you for predicting my question. I mean, my question, Mr. Dalton, really in the calculation of the avoided cost, like from what I understand, it's based on the avoided cost of a quick start combustion turbine. And just trying to understand, is that based on just the operational cost in terms of, avoided fuel costs, et cetera, or is the estimated capital cost for new assets that would have to replace that capacity, where that capacity not found in ISOC included in that avoided cost?
Correct. I believe this avoided energy payment is the avoiding the cost of actually running that peaking combustion turbine. So you're avoiding, you're having the customer shed their load, shed their energy, so that you don't need to provide that energy running the gas turbine itself. So it's more of an operation and maintenance cost, not so much a capital cost. So based on my review of these previous filings and the ISOC reports, it's an energy payment to avoid providing energy from that highest cost resources in the stack. So if you don't have to climb that stack and run that resource, you're avoiding that O&M cost associated with it. But it's not so much you're avoiding a capacity need for the system itself. And so it's
You're
not,
saying that's
you're
what
not
it's calculated on, not necessarily that's how it's calculated right now. In no real capacity credit. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the recommendation for now, but I think in alignment with my conversation with Ms. O'Neill prior, I think we're expecting in this DSM SI filing this coming summer to really take a closer look at all of the demand response, demand flexibility offerings of the company. At least that's my recollection of what we ordered them coming out of the last DSM SI. And especially given what we've seen in really dramatic escalation in the cost of generation, really trying to understand if we've properly priced these programs that should have some capacity savings for the system, especially this one, which in contrast to the one Ms. O'Neill and I talked about, has direct company control to be able to definitively pull that load off at a time when the system's peaking. So anyway, no change right now, but just to express my interest that this is part of that whole bucket of demand response, demand flexibility that we really need to better understand the strategy of to ensure that we're optimizing the system for cost for customers, especially given the dramatic escalation in the cost of resources to serve them, to be sure that these programs are properly incentivized for the real value that they bring to the system, not only in avoiding burning gas on a particular day, but in really the significant capital costs it takes to build out the system to serve the peak load needs.
Commissioner Plant.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Is there any differentiation between utility-owned gas resources and PPA gas resources? Just thinking that in the determination of the value, I'm just thinking that, with a capital resource that the company owns, really the less we use it, the more expensive every kilowatt hour becomes. Which, is less true for the PPA resources. And I'm just wondering if is there any differentiation in those resources when calculating the benefits?
I believe that the resource calculation is based on a company owned. Otherwise, if it was a PPA, you would have to pay for a start charge or start cost for the peaking resource that may be available. But that would be an additional cost besides just O&M cost. Well, that would be for a PPA, that would be included is the actual start cost.
Okay.
Whereas the company does not realize or recognize start cost.
Okay, thanks. I agree with the recommendation.
As do I, and I also agree with Commissioner Gilman's comments. So thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Thank you.
25L-0524G, Public Service Company, GCA, and then steam cost adjustment. Mr. Lay.
Hi, again, I'm Ron Lay with the PUC staff and presenting on the application submitted by Public Service Company in Colorado to amend the gas cost adjustment for the first quarter of 2026. PESCO proposes to change the gas commodity cost to reflect an increase in the forecast cost of natural gas for the first quarter of 2026 to be charged by the numerous producers and suppliers based on forecasted sales quantities, producer-supplier contract terms, and market indices. The gas commodity cost proposed in this GSA is $3.80.843 per decatherm, as compared to the gas commodity cost in effect for the fourth quarter of 2025 GCA of $3.52 per decatherm, which is an increase of 14.65%. The change in revenue resulting from the proposed first quarter 2026 GCA rates is an increase of $13,646,393 in PESCO's January through March 2026 revenue, when compared to the revenues that would be collected under the current effective GCA rates, and is based on forecasted first quarter sales quantities. Residential natural gas bills would increase by $125 per month to $65.08, or by 1.96%, based on an annualized average monthly usage of 58.7 therms. Typical small business natural gas bills would increase by $6.18 per month to $279.58, or by 2.26%, based on an annualized average monthly usage of 291.4 therms. Pause now for questions or proceed to staff's recommendation.
And if you can get a recommendation, that'd be great.
Thanks. Staff has reviewed the application, the accompanying tariffs, and the work papers provided, and recommends the Commission deem the application complete and that the application be granted on less than statutory notice. Staff also recommends that the Commission grant the company's alternative form of notice motion.
Commissioner Gumman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I.
Thank you.
And that can be, I think that's an ABC decision, right? Mr. Lay?
I believe so. I'm not totally sure.
Proceeding number 25L-0525, steam.
Yes. Here again, Ron Lay with PUC staff, presenting on the application submitted by Public Service Company in Colorado to amend the steam cost adjustment for the first quarter of 2026. Currently, there are two components to the steam cost adjustment: the current steam cost, the fuel cost, and the deferred steam cost. These two components are added together to produce the SCA rate. In this filing, there is a projected increase for the current steam cost and a slight decrease in the over recovery amount in the deferred steam cost. The current steam cost will increase from the present rate of $6.567 per thousand pounds to $7.449 per thousand pounds, or an increase of 0.882 per thousand pounds, or approximately 13.43%. The bulk of the cost adjustment is related to the projected deferred steam cost due to the increase in natural gas or commodity prices. The net revenue impact is projected to be an increase of $274,232 compared to the level of revenues that would be collected under the current SCA rate for the first quarter of 2026. The total monthly bill for the typical steam customer will increase from $23,068.64 to $23,856.66, or by $788.02. This increase results in a 3.42% increase for the average steam customer. Pause for questions or give those staff's recommendation here.
Yeah, if you can get a recommendation, that'd be great.
Thanks. Staff has reviewed the application and accompanying tariffs and the work papers provided and recommends that the Commission deem the application complete and that the application be granted on less than statutory notice.
Commissioner Gumman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I, and that's can be an ABC decision, deeming the application complete, granting it on less than statutory notice, and requiring the compliance filing. So thank you, Mr. Lay.
Thank you.
Proceeding number 25R-0280 GPS, Ms. Rosati, Ms. Hensley, take us home. Take us into the break. Ms. Hensley.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Casey Hensley, Pipeline Safety Program Chief with Wendy Rosati of your Commission Council. During the 2021 session, the Colorado State Legislature passed Senate Bill 21108, which included various directives, including directing the Commission to adopt gas pipeline safety rules that address the use of advanced leak detection technology to meet the need for pipeline safety and protection of the environment. For the purposes of this presentation, I'll refer to advanced leak detection technology as ALDT. Rules adopted through proceeding number 22R00491 implemented Senate Bill 21108. The Commission's final decisions determined that, except for certain reporting requirements, rules on ALDT taken up in a future dedicated proceeding due to the highly technical nature of the subject, because Commission staff were already undergoing a stakeholder process on ALDT, and because the federal regulator for pipeline safety, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA, was in the middle of a very similar rulemaking that was expected to be finalized in January 2025. PHMSA's final rule resulting from that rulemaking effort never became effective. During the 2025 session, the Colorado State Legislature passed House Bill 25-1280, which directed the Commission to adopt rules relating to pipeline safety and repair and the use of advanced leak detection technology by November 1st, 2025. As a result of both of these bills, and after multiple stakeholder sessions, the Commission issued a notice of proposed rulemaking on June 26, 2025, opening this proceeding and providing proposed rules on the ALDT use, leak survey requirements, and repair requirements, in addition to small corrections throughout the pipeline safety rules and updates, throughout the pipeline safety rules and updating version dates of relevant federal resources. After participant comments and a public comments hearing, the assigned ALJ issued the recommended decision on October 8th, 2025. Timely exceptions were filed by the American Petroleum Institute, Atmos Energy Corporation, Pipeline Safety Trust, Black Hills, Colorado Gas Incorporated, Joint Local Governments, Colorado Springs Utilities, Public Service Company of Colorado, and Joint Environmental Commenters. Responses to exceptions were filed by Colorado Natural Gas, Local Governments, Joint Environmental Commenters, and Public Service Company of Colorado. Additionally, on November 18, 2025, the local government and Joint Environmental Commenters filed motions for oral argument. On December 2nd, the natural gas utilities filed a joint response to the motions for oral argument, and on December 9th, Larimer County filed a motion for leave to reply in support of the motions for oral argument. Before addressing these exceptions to particular rules, I will turn the presentation over to Ms. Rosati for a recommendation on the request for oral argument.
Ms. Rosati.
Good morning, Commissioners. The local governments request oral argument on the exceptions pursuant to Section 24-4-105 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, and the Joint Environmental Commenters request oral argument pursuant to Commission Rule 1505C on the adopted rules and the recommended decision. Both motions state that the timeline for this rulemaking was short because the legislature only allowed 4 months to implement complicated rules, and that oral argument would clarify the parties' positions and assist the Commission's decision. The gas utilities jointly filed an opposition stating that the request is procedurally improper and that oral arguments would be an improper rehearing of matters that have already been heard and decided. The County of Larimer filed a motion for leave to reply in support of the local government's motion, stating that the requested oral argument would be on the adopted rules, not the proposed rules, and that these matters were not properly adjudicated by the ALJ. I recommend the Commission deny the motions for oral argument. The Commission's rulemaking processes allow participants to sufficiently advocate for their positions and filings. I also recommend denying the County of Larimer's motion for leave to reply, as the claimed material misrepresentation of fact and alleged incorrect statement of law concern the Commission's own procedures and would not assist the Commission's determination here. And with that, I will pause for the Commissioner's votes on these motions.
Commissioner Bowman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I.
Thank you. I will also present one of the exceptions topics. During the proceeding, various participants asked that the rules apply to type R gathering lines. The ALJ rejected these requests in the recommended decision, stating that the Commission's NOPR did not include this concept in its scope and that this is a much larger and jurisdictionally complex issue that would need to be addressed in a different proceeding. The Pipeline Safety Trust, local governments, and the joint environmental commenters filed exceptions, repeating arguments made before the ALJ and requesting regulation of type R gathering lines. I recommend denying these exceptions. I agree with the ALJ's determination regarding type R jurisdictional issues and the scope of this proceeding. And I will pause for your vote on that topic.
Commissioner Goman.
Thanks, Mr. Rosati. I agree with your recommendation.
As do I.
I agree.
Thank you. I'll now turn it back to Ms. Hensley.
That was not smooth. My apologies. Ms. Hensley.
Thank you. I will first present the recommendations on arguments concerning the adopted definition of ALDT. The NOPR's definition of ALDT was commercially available equipment that can detect leaks in gas pipelines at the detection threshold of 10 kilograms per hour emission rate with a 90% or greater probability of detection or better to use with the other 192 regulated gas pipeline facilities or within a suite of mutually reinforcing technologies to offer comparable leak detection ability. This definition resulted from the unpublished PHMSA final ALDT rule with stakeholder discussions and industry committee input. The recommended decision's definition amended the NOPR definition to tailor the detection threshold to the type of pipeline system being monitored, finding that a general concentration or rate detection threshold may not encompass the broad range of available and potential leak detection technologies. This resulted in different sensitivity thresholds required for ALDT used on transmission or gathering lines as opposed to distribution lines. While utility participants generally support the ALDT definition, exceptions on the adopted ALDT definition include that the thresholds are not sensitive enough to promote safety and environmental protection. The Pipeline Safety Trust, local governments, and joint environmental commenters propose that sensitivity thresholds should be technology-based rather than solely dependent on pipeline type. Advisors agree with this concept. For the sensitivity threshold, advisors believe the NOPR's original thresholds of 10 kilograms per hour and 5 parts per million, based on sensitivities included in PHMSA's unreleased final rule and supported in part on exceptions, strike an appropriate balance between cost considerations and moving forward with more sensitive leak surveys. Therefore, I recommend the following changes to the ALDT definition sensitivity thresholds contained in Rule 11001A. For technology using Roman numeral 1. For technology using infrared or laser-based leak detection equipment, mobile, aerial, or satellite-based platforms, or using fixed continuous monitoring sensors must have a minimum flow rate detection limit of 10 kilograms per hour with a 90% probability of detection. Or Roman numeral 2, for technology performed with handheld leak detection equipment or mounted on ground vehicles must have a minimum sensitivity of 5 parts per million. I will now pause for the Commissioner's votes on this recommendation.
Commissioner Goman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I.
Thank you. Exceptions were also filed on the definition of business district, which was first proposed in the NOPR to differentiate between distribution pipeline leak survey intervals. The adopted rules definitions includes areas where the public regularly congregates, where gas and other underground facilities are congested under continuous street and sidewalk paving. Any other area that, in the judgment of the operator, should be so designated. The Pipeline Safety Trust filed exceptions that the definition is slightly ambiguous in relation to residential areas where people are most often present. It advocates that the Commission include multifamily residential in the list of regularly utilized spaces included in the definition. In response to this exception, Public Service supports the adopted rules as clear and practical to implement and consistent with long-standing operator understanding of the concept. Advisors recommend that PST's exceptions be granted, in part so that multifamily residential use be included in a non-exhaustive list of examples. Advisors also recommend that additional changes be made to focus on the main concern the definition attempts to cover, which is wall-to-wall paving, where gas will follow the path of least resistance, possibly to building foundations via existing underground facility pathways, instead of venting to the atmosphere. Therefore, I recommend the following definition of business district in Rule 11001B as areas where gas facilities are located with or without underground facilities under continuous street and sidewalk paving that extends to the building walls on one or both sides of the street. This may include areas where the public regularly congregates or where the majority of the buildings on either side of the street are regularly utilized for industrial, commercial, financial, educational, religious, health, multifamily residential, or recreational purposes, and any other area that, in the judgment of the operator, should be so designated. I will now pause for the Commissioners' votes on this recommendation.
Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. The Commission also received exceptions on a change made to Rule 11102B, which requires operators to telephonically report Colorado-defined pipeline events to PSP staff. The adopted rules in subsection G to Rule 11102B, Roman numeral 3, so that any leak as defined in Section 11210 is a Colorado-defined pipeline event that must be telephonically reported. Adopted Rule 11210 classifies all types of leaks, even very minor ones. Public Service, the American Petroleum Institute Colorado, Atmos, Black Hills Gas, and Colorado Springs Utilities filed exceptions to remove this change. They state that it would impose an extreme burden on utilities and PSP staff to comply and handle the influx of reporting, and that significant leaks are already covered by virtue of other reportable criteria in the existing rule. I recommend granting these exceptions. This change would be overly burdensome for the utilities and PSP staff, and serious events needing immediate PSP staff attention are already covered by the existing rules. Less serious issues that don't require the immediate attention of PSP staff are covered by other annual reporting requirements. I'll pause for the Commissioners' votes on this recommendation.
Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. Y'all are doing great. There's a lot more. The local governments filed an exception to adopted Rule 11103B, which requires the submission of annual reports. The local governments proposed to add the rule that operators must annually report on how the operator met the requirements of Section 11209, which is the leak survey requirements, and that operators should annually certify that the operator met the manufacturer's specifications for using, maintaining, and calibrating ALDT equipment. The local governments argue that this type of reporting is necessary to ensure the PSP has oversight to ensure the ALDT rules are being followed. In response, Public Service argues the addition is redundant and would not provide meaningful new information and would only increase administrative burden on operators and PSP staff. I recommend the Commission deny this exception. The rule already requires that operators annually provide a list of detection technologies for each type of leak survey conducted in the prior calendar year, and the leak indicators that the technologies provide. This is sufficient information for the PSP staff in these new ALDT rules.
Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. I'll now turn to recommendations regarding 11209, which sets forth leak survey requirements for leak requirements and intervals. The main issue with this rule raised on exceptions is whether operators should be required to use ALDT in leak surveys. The proposed rule set forth the intervals for leak surveys using ALDT. During the proceeding, Public Service recommended removing the requirement that operators use ALDT equipment entirely to allow for more flexibility in selection of leak detection technology. The ALJ agreed with this proposal to allow for greater flexibility in the selection of leak detection equipment. In relevant parts, the adopted rule requires that all leak detection surveys use leak detection equipment. In the responses to exceptions, this change is opposed by the local governments and the joint environmental commenters. They state that through this change, the rules do not require the use of ALDT during gas pipeline leak surveys or at any point in the operator's leak management operations. They argue that this rule fails to fulfill the Commission's stated objective in the NOPR to require the use of ALDT. They also argue that because the recommended decision does not acknowledge the significance of this change, it is either arbitrary or perhaps even unintended. I recommend granting exceptions to require that operators shall perform all leak detection surveys with the use of ALDT. Requiring the use of ALDT in leak survey conforms with the Commissioner's NOPR and is authorized under statute, and was a foundational assumption of most of the participants' comments in the proceeding. Advisors are comfortable with the balance struck between requiring ALDT use in leak surveys and the less sensitive detection thresholds adopted in the ALDT definition. I will pause for the Commissioner's votes on this recommendation.
Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. The second main issue with this rule raised on exceptions is the leak survey intervals. For transmission pipelines, the adopted rules require that transmission and gathering pipelines in Class 1 and 2 locations, which are in sparsely populated areas, be surveyed at least once a calendar year and at intervals not exceeding 15 months. For transmission and gathering pipelines in Class 3 and 4 areas and/or high consequence areas, surveys are required at least 4 times a calendar year and at intervals not exceeding 4.5 months. Public Service filed exceptions on this, stating that large portions of its transmission system are located in areas with difficult terrain and with extended snow cover, where it would be impossible or unsafe to conduct leak surveys at the prescribed quarterly frequency. It argues that the requirement for quarterly surveys should be reserved for pipelines that present the largest risk to public safety, which it states are Class 4 transmission pipelines in high consequence areas in Class 4 locations. Public Service proposes that for HCAs in Class 1, 2, or 3 locations, the frequency be twice per year at intervals not to exceed 7.5 months. Joint environmental commenters and local governments oppose Public Service's request and support the adopted rules intervals. Advisors agree with Public Service's concerns. Given the number of Class 3 locations of transmission lines, operators would need to file numerous rule waivers each year. Allowing the intervals proposed by Public Service would decrease the administrative burden while still providing an improvement over current leak survey intervals. I therefore recommend the Commission grant Public Service's exceptions on this issue. I will pause for the Commissioner's votes.
Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. For distribution pipelines outside the business districts, The adopted rules require leak surveys at least once every 3 calendar years, not to exceed 39 months. Colorado Springs Utilities contends this is a significant deviation from federal leak survey requirements, and it argues that an appropriate interval is every 5 years, not to exceed 63 months. I recommend denying these exceptions. While these distribution pipelines may present less of a safety risk, part of the Commission's intent in this rulemaking is to impose more frequent surveys to identify leaks that may be small, but that over time lead to increased emissions. Advisors do not find that the 3-year leak interval to be overly burdensome. For the leak survey intervals for distribution pipelines, I recommend small clarifying changes to replace a federal reference and remove a redundant provision. I will pause for your vote.
Commissioner Gutman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. For the leak survey rule, I also recommend including a January 1, 2027 effective date to align with the effective date included for leak repair requirements to prevent operator confusion on how these rules will work together without both being effective. I'll pause for your votes on this recommendation.
Commissioner Gutman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. I'll now turn to recommendations on Rule 11.210, which requires leak classifications using grades and which imposes associated repair timelines. The rule includes some preliminary language on who should classify leaks and how ALDT should be used in classification. Advisors have 2 recommendations on these preliminary statements. First, I recommend removing the requirement in Adopted Rule 11.210A to inspect all reports of gas leaks within 4 hours of notification to align with the removal of requirement to telephonically report all leaks. Removing this requirement will not impact the operator's existing practices of investigating and addressing grade 1 hazardous leaks immediately. Second, I recommend clarifying requirements in Rule 11.210B on who should perform leak surveys to align with federal requirements and removing extraneous language regarding how to classify leaks. I will pause for your votes on these recommendations.
Commissioner Gutman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
as do I.
Thank you. The adopted rules set forth leak classifications for grades 1, 2, and 3. Grade 1 leaks represent an existing or probable hazard to persons or property and require immediate repair or continuous action until they are no longer hazardous. Grade 2 leaks are non-hazardous at the time of detection, but justify scheduled repair based on probable future hazards. Grade 3 leaks are non-hazardous at the time of detection and are reasonably expected to remain non-hazardous. Grade 2 and 3 leaks include additional identifying criteria, but these are the broad strokes of the leak grades. I will present exceptions and recommendations relating to each of the grades before pausing for vote, if that's okay with the commissioners.
Yep.
Thank you. For grade 1 leaks, the local governments filed exceptions arguing that grade 1 should include many more specific circumstances, including grave hazard to the environment. Public Service opposes this addition. I recommend denying this exception. Grade 1 leaks are intended to capture serious safety risks using a standard that operators are very familiar with and are already applying. Advisors do not want the Commission rules to interfere with the response to hazardous events. For grade 2 leaks, the local governments, joint environmental commenters, the Pipeline Safety Trust advocate for implementing a flow rate as part of the definition of grade 2 leaks. Public Service opposes such an addition, stating that requiring the evaluation of flow rate potentially distracts from the focus on classification using important risk characteristics. I recommend denying these exceptions. I agree with Public Service's concerns that requiring a flow rate analysis would distract from important public safety risk characteristics, and I note that including classification criteria for grade 2 leaks and associated repair timelines is a significant improvement over the current rules and practices. I also recommend a minor clarification to the grade 2 classification criteria to clarify that covered grade 2 leaks are not grade 1 leaks. For grade 3 leaks, Colorado Springs Utilities and Black Hills argue that one criterion in the adopted rule is ambiguous and overbroad. The criterion is that any reading of gas outside the pipe is a grade 3 leak. Advisors recommend granting these exceptions and simplifying the definition to mean any leak that is not a grade 1 or 2 so that all other leaks are captured in grade 3 leaks. With that explanation, I will pause for your votes on these recommendations relating to changes to leak grades.
Commissioner Gilman.
Yeah, Ms. Hensley, I agree with your recommendation. Just want to point out there's like some potential relationship here, just potential to clean heat plan in terms of recovered methane, methane that is recovered by means of leak repair in the clean heat plan. In which case, I believe there's additional criteria that it has to be shown to be cost effective, which probably debatable, but you need to understand an abatement cost. You need to understand how much is leaking. So just to say, like, the use of advanced leak detection in the rules versus how it might need to be used for other programming might look different in the future. And I just think that's helpful for the utilities to think through, especially to the extent that they intend to use recovered methane, especially through leak repair in the future as a clean heat plan compliance mechanism. That might change some of their views on having to track the volume of anticipated leakage out of the leak. But anyway, just wanted to point out how this technology may be used even across other programs that the companies may be running. But other than that, I agree with your recommendation.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I.
Thank you. My final topic today is leak repair timelines in Rule 11.2.10. Grade 1 leaks require immediate repair or continuous action until the conditions are no longer hazardous. With some allowance for inaccessible ground, grade 2 leaks must be repaired within 12 months. Grade 3 leaks must be repaired within 24 months unless it is scheduled for abandonment within 5 years. In that case, the leak must be evaluated every 12 months to ensure it will not become significant. The Pipeline Safety Trust, Joint Environmental Commenters, and the local governments filed exceptions requesting a reduction in the repair and monitoring timelines for grade 3 and grade 3 leaks to better protect public safety and the environment. Public Service and Colorado Springs Utilities filed exceptions requesting additional flexibility in the repair timelines to allow for scheduling and weather-related considerations. For grade 2 leaks, allowing 12 to 15 months, and for grade 3 leaks, allowing 24 to 30 months. I recommend denying all of these exceptions relating to repair timelines. The ALJ appropriately balanced the interests of the participants. Prior to these rules, no repair requirements applicable to all jurisdictional operators were imposed. So these rules represent a significant step forward in protecting public safety and the environment. I will pause for your vote on this issue.
Commissioner Gilman.
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I.
Thank you.
Sorry, excuse me. One point of clarification. Commissioner Gilman, would you like the decision to reflect the concept you just raised about kind of the interaction of these rules and clean heat plans for the regulated utilities?
I mean, I'm not sure it needs to. It's really outside of the bounds of these rules, but a potential additional application for the advanced leakage detection technology that I just think the utilities want to think through to the extent they want to bring some of that data into other proceedings. So to me, it's not pertinent to these rules specifically, but just wanted to kind of acknowledge the potential crossover, the use of the technology and different things that might need to be tracked in those circumstances. But curious, I don't know if my colleagues think it needs to be mentioned or not.
I defer to you. Whatever your preference is good by me.
I'm fine for not really, just a heads up, to the extent we want to use this for something else, the data we collect could or should look different, I think.
Okay, understood.
Uh,
Thank you.
Does that give you what you need, Ms. Hensley?
Yes, thank you.
And Commissioner Gilman, are you all right if this is an ABC order granting and denying the exceptions consistent with the recommendations and our votes?
Yeah.
Commissioner Plant?
Yes.
So I think this can be an ABC order. Thanks for taking us through this, Ms. Hensley. Anything final before wish you both a fantastic, wish you and both and everyone else a fantastic, happy and healthy holiday. Commissioner Gilman.
Nothing additional, and just echo your comments from earlier. Hoping to hear from customers on their experiences on the PSPS. For those who are not joining us, the PUC's website, I believe, is hosting a survey to hear some of those experiences so we can ensure we best understand how that went. But just to reiterate that in case folks weren't joining in the beginning. Other than that, look forward to enjoying some holiday time and hope you all do as well.
Commissioner Plant.
Yeah, no, I have nothing else, and hope you all have great holiday, even though maybe Commissioner Gilman, it's not exactly as snowy and cold as you would like.
Understatement of the year.
I think there's hope for next week, though. All right, with that, happy holidays to everyone, and we're adjourned. See everybody next week.